What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here at the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts over the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, we're Tad the Side. And Tad, we're reaching that transition point where we're sort of shifting off of the NFL draft talk and we're jumping into fantasy talk now. Now, this is sort of, like I said, the transition point. So, I mean, we do have a crossover episode today.
Crossover? You know, I'm a comic fan. Well, we're both comic fans. I love a good crossover.
That is true. No, that's exactly what's happening today because unfortunately, Tad, as much as we wanted to during the NFL draft live stream, we didn't really get a chance to talk too much about fantasy stuff.
Because there were 1,000 trades in the second round. When there are only 32 teams, somehow they managed to fit in 152 trades.
It was pretty crazy. Outside of just all the trades that happened for teams wanting to move up to the top of the second round, but we also had just the wildness of, the Michael Penix Jr. trade, but selection at number 8 overall. We had the 14 straight selections of offensive players. There's a lot of things that we were discussing outside of fantasy football that kept us going for the 8.5 hours, I think, total hours between both.
I timed it. It was actually 8:44.
8:44. There you go. Close to 9 hours. Let's just say that. So we had more than enough content.
We need to get a life, man.
To keep us going through those entire 9 hours or close to it. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we didn't discuss a lot of the fantasy implications with lots of these rookies landing in new situations. And then on the flip side, how it affects veterans in their current situation that may be affected by a rookie, either good or bad. So that is the purpose of today's episode, Tad. We're going to talk about rookies, whether they landed in good situations or bad situations. And then, of course, we're also going to talk about veterans because they get affected by the rookie and the NFL draft as well. So whether they landed in, whether their situation, increased their stock or possibly decreased their stock when it comes to fantasy football. So, should be good fun. Like I said, crossover between the two, sort of like, hand off, this is like the baton, the 400-meter relay, where it's like you're handing off the baton of, NFL draft stuff to now handing it off to fantasy football stuff. So that's exactly what today's episode is. That sort of baton handoff.
Well done. Well, perfectly executed metaphor.
Especially with the Olympics coming on. I felt like that was pretty apt, right? I think
I guess the Olympics are coming out
pretty well.
Speaking of the Olympics, my bet is on the U.S. to win the gold.
And what?
I don't know everything. I'm patriotic, man. Don't kill my patriotism. I'm trying to hype us up here.
Fair. But yes, especially, speaking of bet, even though the NFL draft is over, they didn't do anything when it came to the NFL draft. But Underdog Fantasy is your number one source for all of your betting needs. It's a very fun and easy way to get into the platform. All you have to do is make anywhere between 2 and 5 different prop bet picks across whatever sport that you're comfortable with. Because, we got the NBA playoffs happening as of recording, Ted. That is going on right now. We got the NHL playoffs that is happening right now. Obviously, we got the MLB season in full swing as well. You got, lacrosse, you got cricket, you got MMA, you got boxing. I'm pretty sure there might be some Olympic related events when that comes around to that time in the summer. So just like whatever you're feeling comfortable with, you make 2 to 5 different prop bet picks. The more picks you make, the more potential money you can win. And it's really fun. And Underdog Fantasy, once you get into the action, they gave us a promo code to share with you guys. Use the promo code DESAI, DESAI, to double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500. So hypothetically, if you were to put in that max amount, $500 on their platform using our promo code DESAI, DESAI, they will match that dollar for dollar. You can bet with up to $1,000 on their platform. You can use the website. You can use their mobile device applications, whether that's on Apple devices or Android. It's just a really intuitive, both app as well as the websites are really easy to use. So guys, get to the action. It's a ton of fun. Make some quick money right before we get into summer vacation here, before, start planning some of that vacation. Hey, we got a surprise appearance there. Cap is all interested in summer vacation.
He heard that promo code and he was straight in there for it. You're not 21. Back off.
But I think he's interested in that vacation money. So I think that's why maybe get some more cat treats and some cat toys. I think that's exactly what it is. So yeah, use Underdog Fantasy to get the action. Use that promo code like we listed out there, DESAI, DESAI, to double up on your deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. So even though it's underdog Tad, I think Cap was super interested.
He was very excited about that. He was very excited. But no, I mean, especially with the NBA playoffs being so crazy, I haven't checked my phone in a couple minutes as of recording. The Mavs and Thunder are much closer than I anticipated. I didn't even expect the Mavs to move on past the first round. So if you're losing some of those bets, it's easier to bet on players. And Underdog Fantasy is absolutely fantastic for that, for player props. Really, really good. So even if the team loses, you still win. So Underdog Fantasy is going to be a lot of fun with the playoffs. And yeah, NHL playoffs are also insane. I thought the Florida Panthers were going to steamroll their way to the Stanley Cup finals, but my God, Boston looked damn good in game one. So, it's hard to predict teams, but it's easier to predict players.
It's actually funny that you bring up players, Tag, because that's the purpose of today's episode, where it's like, we're talking about players when it comes to fantasy football, both rookies as well as veterans, and who landed in good situations and who unfortunately will land. They're just not in the best situation to help their fantasy stock. So let's start with the rookies, obviously. We just, like we talked about, the whole metaphor, the pass the baton here, the NFL draft. So let's start with the rookies here first. So, Tad, why don't you give me a rookie that landed in the perfect situation that, they value drafting in redraft leagues, and potentially they have a higher stock when it comes to dynasty leagues as well, where I know we have our good friend Jason Davis is in dynasty league.
Just complete. Yeah. Jason, if you're watching this, send me those damn screenshots of the draft already. I'm still waiting on those.
But yeah, who's a rookie that you like when it comes to fantasy football this year?
This was a draft pick that at the time I liked, I didn't love. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh my God, this actually may be pure brilliance on the part of the coach, the GM, whoever made this call. And it is the Chargers selecting Ladd McConkey at the top of the second round. The more I think about it, the more I love it. And the reason for that is, there are a couple. First off is I think that the more this is what I mean by the more I think about it is I think they're going to use him in a different way than I thought. When they first drafted him and I said this, I was like, oh, he's going to be their Wes Welker or Danny Amendola. And yeah, maybe I was doing a race thing there. But in terms of this is just a slot guy we constantly throw it to. And then I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, that kind of slot receiver is kind of dead. I mean, I'm not saying they're totally gone, but now it seems like, thanks to your boy Shanahan, the new slot receiver is the number one receiver. And let me tell you how. So I am not saying he's going to be like these players right off the bat in terms of production. I am just saying in terms of play style and usage, it would not shock me if it was similar. I could see the Chargers using Ladd McConkey in a similar style to how the Rams use Cooper Kupp, the Lions using Amon-Ra St. Brown, definitely not the Bears using him. And hey, they had his brother though. There we go. That's the connection. And then the Cowboys using CeeDee Lamb. And I know I can hear it's Star Wars all over again. I can hear 1,000 listeners screaming in my headphone right now. What the hell are you talking about? Well, Cooper Kupp last year ran 55% of his routes in the slot. CeeDee Lamb ran 53% of his routes in the slot. St. Brown was the only one that dropped below 50%. So he ran 48% of his routes in the slot. Meaning, do I think McConkey is going to be a slot exclusive receiver? No. But I think a majority of his routes will be run out of the slot. Why? Because his two biggest strengths are, first off, understanding the defense. It's and this is hard to tell in a receiver, but McConkey clearly watches a lot of tape. I compare him to Peyton Manning of receivers because it's very clear that dude watches a ton of tape because he understands, I know you're bad at deep coverage, so I'm going to cut that route a little short. And also, by cut that route a little short, his route running is so crisp, so clean. So he really does remind me, and this is where this idea first originated. I was like, God, he reminds me a lot of Cooper Kupp. Like, nothing you do is really that spectacular, but you are a damn good route runner, and you just get how to find the open space. And so I think that he's going to be kind of that all over the place receiver for them. I think Quinn Johnston, rightfully so, is going to be the stretch the field guy for them. And Ladd McConkey is going to be the guy that if QJ's not open down the field, all right, where's McConkey at? And so I see a ton of targets coming his way. He already has a proven quarterback in Justin Herbert. That's the nicest thing about all of this is I don't even worry about the guy tossing him the ball. I know he's good. It just is, will McConkey live up to expectations? And if he does, I think he'll be the Chargers version of Roman Wilson. And you look at Roman Wilson, sure, his reception numbers weren't that great. Definitely not. His yardage numbers weren't that great. He finished this last season in Michigan at 770. But on top of that, he led Michigan with 12 touchdowns. And so I think that McConkey is going to be that guy that they're constantly looking for. So especially in PPR leagues, he's going to be especially valuable. He's going to rack up those catches. The touchdown numbers are iffy because it depends on how good this offense is going to be. But it really wouldn't shock me that if McConkey became the most valuable late round flyer of fantasy drafts by the end of the year. Notice how I left the word rookie out there. I don't care that he's rookie. He could be the late round flyer that proves to be the difference maker by the end of the year. This is a guy who gives me immediate flex capability with potential wide receiver 2 upside. So, and I think because let's be honest, Amber, let me ask you this. Grade the Charger, and I have a very important kind of qualifier to put on this. Grade the Chargers offseason from an outsider's perspective. Because we've obviously been very involved with the LAFB network and everything. If you were, I don't know, someone in Dallas who really doesn't give a crap about the Chargers, how would you grade their offseason?
Nothing exciting. I'd maybe say like a B-, C+. Mm-hmm. It's like, very middle of the road.
Exactly. And I think that's where you find value with fantasy is, they didn't have a bad offseason from an outsider's perspective, but they also didn't have a great one. So if I'm looking at, I see Ladd McConkey in the 6th round, and I'm not listening to the best fantasy football podcast out there, sorry guys, I'm like, okay, I don't love it. Like, I don't think that offense could be that good, but I'm telling you that, like, if he's available in the last 2 rounds and you're a little thin at receiver, he is the chef kiss perfect pick right there. I think McConkey is very low risk, very high reward.
No, I think he's the exact type of receiver that's needed in that offense. Where, like you said, they got Quentin Johnston. I think they just used him differently because of the injuries that they had.
They didn't use him differently. They used him terribly. They did my boy dirty.
Incorrectly. I think that's probably the best word there for sure. And so just I think that's led to a lot of his struggles that we saw his rookie year. I think obviously he could clean it up. He could be a lot more dependable receiver in his second year now, but that's what McConkey is good at. Exactly like it laid out, where just he's a great route runner. He recognizes what to do when the defense is attacking him or game planning for him. And he's still able to find the soft spots to be open for his quarterback. And so, he may not be a guy that's going to get 100 yards every single game that he's playing in, but he's going to be that guy, especially in PPR leagues. That's just he's going to get a ton of receptions because he's going to be able to get open for Justin Herbert. And then every so often they'll be able to get that deep shot to Quentin Johnston or go in different directions, establish the run. Obviously with Jim Harbaugh, that's what he wants to do on offense. So, but just, when you're looking at a guy who's probably going to lead the team in receptions,
I agree,
probably going to be McConkey. I think it's going to be McConkey. And because of that, automatic excellent value when it comes to fantasy football for sure.
And you may say, and look, I was tempted to say he would be a high value waiver target, but that's the problem is you're running a big risk because like you said
he'll get drafted. I think he'll get drafted.
You think so?
I think so. 100%. Because like I said, because outside of, Quentin Johnston, I know they signed DJ Chark. It's outside of that, there's nobody in that receiver room that really strikes me as far as okay, I could trust him a little bit more. No, for me, it's McConkey is definitely going to get involved. The only thing that I worry about with McConkey, and I brought this up during the live stream as well, is just he needs to stay healthy because that was the big thing that led to him falling to the 2nd round.
Wow, a Chargers receiver needs to stay healthy. Breaking news, everybody. Apparently we're back in 2016.
So that's the big thing. So that I could possibly see while he may go a little bit lower in fantasy drafts as well, because people may be concerned, will that injury history creep up on him again? But if he stays healthy for at least, 12 games out of the 17, 100% I've drafted this guy for sure.
Especially if I'm in dynasty leagues, because the more
100% dynasty leagues.
Yeah, exactly. The more familiar he gets with this offense, the better he's going to get. And like I say, it would not shock me if this dude is running a Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp situation that the LA Rams, I mean, hell, they share a stadium with them. Might as well steal their tactics. So if I'm in a dynasty league, this dude's at the top of my draft board. If I'm in a redraft league, he's that guy that, that feeling when you're in the later round, like the last 3 or 4 rounds, and you're just I just want to be done with this. I don't give a shit. You're just drafting whoever. He's a great just whoever to draft.
I can see that. So I'm gonna go with the wide receiver position as well here, Ted, as far as a guy who landed a good situation. And it's very similar to the Chargers, where it's just like they had a very depleted wide receiver room, and this rookie is landing a situation where I think he's going to be the priority target, and that is Keon Coleman with
That's
the
a good one.
Buffalo Bills.
That's a very good one.
The trade of Stephon Diggs just left a gaping hole in the Bills receiving room. You also have to remember the fact that Gabe Davis is now a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So,
you don't need to remind me.
So with those two guys gone, Ted, I mean, Diggs had 160 targets, 107 receptions, 1,183 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns in 2023. Davis had 81 targets, 45 receptions, 746 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. So if you look at it just purely on a target standpoint, between Davis and Diggs, that was 241 targets that is now vacated from this offense. And so I do think that Dalton Kincaid should see a rise in his target numbers as long as he stay healthy. I know he suffered from some injuries last season. So I think he's going to get a lot of the targets since he's already familiar with the offense. But outside of that, like, I know they drafted Dawson Knox as well, but I think they like him a little bit more as a blocker because Dalton Kincaid emerges as a receiving threat. So I'm not saying Dawson Knox is totally not usable in fantasy drafts, but it's just very lower priority. Like if you're playing in a multi-tight end type of league, or like, a tight end where they get premium points, where they get 1.5 per reception, that's where I see Dawson Knox having a little bit more value. But outside of Kincaid, I mean, we talked about this receiver room before, Ted. It's like they signed Curtis Samuel, but I mean, he never topped 1,000 receiving yards in his entire career, and he's never also topped more than 6 receiving touchdowns in his career. That happened in 2 separate seasons. So it wasn't even the same season where he just went all out and he like totally demolished for having, one season over that much. So it's just like he's had 851 yards in one season back in 2020, and then he had 6 receiving touchdowns in 2019. So back-to-back 2 relatively good seasons, but overall, he's more of a second or third option in this offense. So not anybody that you can really rely on to be that sort of, torchbearer for this passing offense. Insert Coleman. I think he has the potential. We saw it at Florida State. Well, he's that number one guy. He's got an insane catch radius, very good run out to the catch ability. So I think he's going to be that number one guy that Josh Allen is going to be looking for. And like I said, 241 targets vacated, like easily that's going to shift in his direction when you don't have that many people in your receiver room fighting for that target share. Like, I mean, automatically he's going to rise up that depth chart as we go through the training camps and, the preseason. I think clearly he's going to separate himself to be a top option. And like I said, slowly because of the addition by attrition here, Keon Coleman is a very good add in redraft fantasy leagues.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much I can say against that. My biggest concern with him isn't even a him thing. It's that, is he going to be over-targeted? And I'll get into what that means in a bit. But you're right. I think if Dalton Kincaid can stay on the field, that adds enough, dynamicism. Is that a word?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, we'll run with it. Is that the new finacity? Dynamicism?
Could be. I think I've heard that word before, though. I think I've heard it before.
Damn it. Oh, well. I'll copyright it right after this episode. But meaning that, like, I think I almost said Knox. I think that Kincaid will take away enough attention away from him, Coleman. But no, I completely agree. When I was scouting Coleman, my biggest complaint with him was his route running. But honestly, and I swear I probably would have said this even before he was drafted, of like, if you made me come up with a pro comp for a player for Coleman, it probably would have been Stephon Diggs. They play very similar, like kind of a skinnier guy that tends to just have this like explosiveness. They were like, the hell did that come from? So I think that was a very smart move by them. That's why I think, and we were talking about this on our last episode, the Panthers made a mistake, because I think that's the reason the Panthers traded up. Although I don't know if you saw this report from ESPN that apparently the Patriots were also targeting them.
Yeah, I saw that at 34. Yeah.
So did I do it right that time,
Leggett, yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. Getting used to it. But anyway, point being is, I think that, he's unquestionably their number one receiver. The over-targeted thing, the only problem is defenses know they're going to be thrown into him. So is he going to be double covered a lot? But even with that, it's just it's a double-sided coin. Yes, he may struggle for being over-targeted, but at the same time, if you get 120 targets your rookie year, you're going to produce no matter what, unless you're an absolute bust, which I don't think he will be. So overall, I think there's a fair amount of risk there, but if you're willing to take that flyer, if you have, let's say, 2 good veterans in your starting slots, and you're like, you know what, I want to take a flyer on Coleman in case one of them gets hurt. If you take a Keenan Allen, for example, and you're like, I need an insurance policy for Keenan Allen, I think Keon Coleman's a great one that you can get with fairly good value. The only problem is I think he's going to be one of these guys, just wait until July or August and those training camp reports start coming up. I bet you his value is going to skyrocket in these redraft leagues.
Oh, easily. So talk about skyrocketing here, Tad. How about we think about the opposite here? So who are rookies that unfortunately landed in a situation where it's just like, it's going to hurt their fantasy value, where it's like, maybe if some injury situations, then they become a little bit more valuable. But off the bat, if everybody stays healthy, this is not a guy that you want to be targeting with your fantasy roster.
So the opposite of skyrocket. So the SpaceX program?
I'd probably say that one. That's not bad.
Elon's not litigious, is he? Elon, if you are, you can reach me at Emergency23. You can sue him. Sue me. Sorry, you can sue me there and just deliver. You do the whole you just got served.
Yeah, you didn't do that all that well. You're clear to know that you're not me.
I don't know what you're talking about. Bearded guy, slightly brown, it works. But no, I think that this one sucked, man. Because I really did like this player, but the second this pick happened, I was like, huh? I think you can in fact actually see the live reaction of me going, huh? I'm saying 10 yards away from Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah,
that was such a weird pick.
This was interesting.
It was such a weird pick. So Jonathan Brooks was drafted by the Carolina Panthers, much to the chagrin of my Cowboys students who are fans of them. And look, I actually was shocked. I went in. I know you need to put all bias aside, but Brooks was just so loved as number one running back that when I went into his tape, I was kind of looking for flaws. I was like, he's not as good as everyone says. And I watched the first couple of plays of his. The first game I watched of his was against Oklahoma in this past year's Cotton Bowl. He did not do much the first 2 drives, and I'm like, I knew it. He sucks. So I'm taking notes of you're constantly looking for the hole, can't hit the, doesn't have explosiveness. And then he absolutely blew up for 100 yards that game. I'm like, damn it. Damn it. And I kept watching him. And the more I watch him, I'm like, yeah, you're good. So he actually ended up as my number 1 running back going into the draft. I think he was your number 2, number 3.
He was my number 2, I believe. Yeah, I like Trey Benson a lot more.
Yeah, which still a hot take. But regardless, that spot was well earned in our collective top 3. With all that said, I really hate this fit in Carolina. I really hate it because not only is it a crowded backfield with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, I don't know if you saw this headline. They added to this already crowded backfield.
I was actually just about to say that. Yeah, they signed Rashad Penny to add to that backfield. So just I don't know
what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know why. Because also, Tad, I don't know if you mentioned this, but they traded up to select Jonathan Brooks in the second round. So it's
because they were definitely scared of the Cowboys taking him.
Yeah. So it's just it's a very interesting move. And then, you followed up with Rashad Penny. So yeah, I agree with you. But yeah, continue with your take.
I
question it too.
It's just so weird. So obviously, look, not all 4 of them are going to make the final roster. Somebody's going to be the odd man out. My money's on Hubbard. I don't know about you. I think Hubbard's the odd one out.
Hubbard is a very good shot. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to cut Miles Sanders too.
It's one or the other. It's either Hubbard or Sanders is going to be one of them. I can see that. But yeah, I think Rashad Penny is 25, 26?
I think so. I thought he was in his late 20s. So, but yeah, I could be wrong.
Maybe. But yeah, no. So I think Penny's going to make the final roster. Brooks is obviously going to make it. But, you look at their new head coach, who was the former offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. And, it was actually fun. I was so mad because I did research on their running stats in 2023. And it didn't really support my original point, which was how does this work when this guy splits carries? And then I was like, fine, let's research the 2022 Tampa Bay stats. And that's when I found out he was not the coach in 2022 after about 15 minutes of research.
Yeah.
He was Seattle's passing coordinator in 2022. Yep. Shows you how much prior research I did. So anyway,
Rashad Penny is 28.
Oh, god damn, that's a lot older. Shit.
I thought it was his late 20s. Yeah. So yeah.
God, I guess that was 2017 he got drafted. Fuck, we're old. We 30 in 3 months. I hate this. Anyway, Point being is, so let's just look as a passing game coordinator. I'm not interested in Seattle's running stats. He was not in charge of that. So fine. Let's just look at what he did his 1 year completely in charge of Tampa Bay's offense. Not great in terms of splitting carries. Over under 250 carries for Rachaad White last season.
Under.
He had 272.
272. Wow. He really stepped it up towards the latter half of the season then. Okay. I didn't realize it got that high.
Do you want to guess who was Tampa Bay's second heaviest ball carrier?
Keyshawn Vaughn?
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yep. So if we're sticking with just ball carriers, though, in terms of running backs, their second, most carry running back, that's a terrible way to phrase it, but whatever, it was Chase Edmonds at 49.
Edmonds.
At 49. So it was 272 to 49. So
yeah,
we have
clearly one-sided.
We have very little evidence of him as an offensive coordinator or offensive play caller, of him being able to do running back by committee. And on top of this, it's just, look, this was behind a very good Tampa Bay offensive line. Rachaad White had 990 yards and 6 touchdowns. Not a bad season. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's certainly not great. That's pretty okay, that was there. I would prefer a little bit more touchdowns if you're under 1,000 yards, but whatever. So he's, he gave this one running back the ball a ton. He wasn't really able to do that much with it behind a I would say, very good offensive line.
Yeah.
Now he's in Carolina with a still, I would say, halfway decent, especially after some investments they made this offseason. But definitely a worse offensive line. And here's the biggest thing. We don't know who's going to be the main, primary ball carrier there. So
that's the big problem.
And here's my biggest concern in terms of our listeners, our audience, and everything. This is classic. This happens every year. You got a big name rookie, the Texas running back that was the number 1 running back by most, experts. Yeah, he's in Carolina, where if you're not paying close attention, you think, he's going to be the number 1 guy. I'm telling you right now, this is the classic rookie bust all the way. So I am saying, I'm going to say this again later this episode, but I swear I'm not just saying this to say this for shock value. He's undraftable. It's just too much of an unknown.
It's hard to really trust exactly how this Carolina Panthers backfield is going to shake out. It's really, you're going to have to wait and see after training camp, after preseason. But even after all that, like you said, maybe Canales wants to go with the running back that combination effect, where it's just like, but we really have no idea how it's going to shake out that way. And so it's tough to trust him then, because it's like, if they go by that committee approach, that's like, how much can you rely on him to be the lead guy? It's like, he's going to split carries too much. It's not going to be in that situation. Or maybe they go with the veteran. So it's like, they give Miles Sanders one more shot instead of, cutting him. They cut Chuba Hubbard, like you're sort of laying out. So it's like, they still will chip him in every so often. So yeah, it's too hard for me to trust. So I 100%, I think I'd lean more towards not drafting him and him being a high priority free agency ad. If it shakes out later, that's like, okay, Brooks is getting more involved in the offense.
He reeks of a guy who's going to break out like right as the playoffs roll around.
It could be.
And like, that's a key ad. But no, sorry to interrupt you, but real quick, just the more, we're talking about it, here's exactly how I see it coming. And this is why I picked Hubbard as my guy who gets cut. I think Miles Sanders, I think they're going to attempt a running back by committee. Sanders is going to be the receptions guy, like the passing guy. I think that Rashad Penny and Brooks are going to kind of split the running back, the on the ground duties, and that's why Hubbard's the odd man out, because he's good in the receiving game, he's good on the running game, but I think Penny's better than him at both.
That's fair. I could see that happening. But yeah, either way, I think it's just too much of a puzzling situation for me to trust it. And so, yeah, I think for that case, I'd rather leave that hornet's nest alone and decide to figure it out once it all gets situated later in the season. And yeah, supplement my roster later with a good, waiver wire addition or something like that, or possibly a trade. Who knows about
that too. And last thing before you get into your pick, bonus, pick, by the way, because I almost went with this, Adam Thielen. His value also dropped with the arrival of Leggett, but that Panthers offense just in general, I'm not touching any of them.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how
Tremble with Sanders there. It's just all these rookies are screwing everything up. I love it.
I'm going to go with the running back as well. And Tad, I remember we both saw this as well, that just this was a very surprising move, especially when they have an entrenched starter who is still very young in his career and a very established not rookie running back, but a very established young running back in the league. And that is the New York Jets drafting Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin.
Not the only running back they drafted, by the way.
That's the thing too. Like, I mean, I'll get to that in a second here, but just like, you look at this guy's tape for Wisconsin. And Tad, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Larry Johnson from the NFL? He's a running back with the Chiefs.
Yeah, with the Chiefs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I compared Braylon Allen to Larry Johnson. When I saw his game tape, I was just like, I saw a very similar running style. I was like, this is a guy that could really benefit if he lands in the right situation. Biggest thing too on his side compared to lots of these prospects, especially at the running back position, the guy turned 20 at the beginning of the year. So he has age on his side, whereas lots of these other running backs, I know we're both fans of Ray Davis. I think he's going to be 24 when he's entering the league. So it's like, that's a big detriment to him, especially him being behind James Cook. But here, he was 20. If he landed in the right situation, he could have developed into a future starting running back. But landing with the Jets, they drafted Breece Hall, who is a premier running back in the league. And just like, I don't know why you decide to add Allen into that mix. Cause just like, I guess maybe you want to get that complimentary piece. I guess that sort of makes sense. I know they drafted a few other guys that just hasn't really worked out, but just like, I was very shocked that they decided to go with running back. I thought they had more pressing needs. And so Allen landing in the situation, I was like, okay, maybe they want to use him as like, you know, complimentary piece. Maybe they want to trade Breece Hall. I really have no idea what the reasoning was behind this pick, but then you just added the fact that's like, not only did they draft a running back, Tad, but it was the very next round. They drafted Braylon Allen in the 4th round, and then very next round in the 5th round, they drafted Isaiah Davis, who we're both fans of, out of South Dakota State. They drafted him to add this running back room. So it's just like, I don't know what you're doing, Jets, because it's like, clearly I really don't know. This is even worse than the Carolina Panthers backfield situation, because like, now you're just stockpiling all these young rookie running backs who are just, you know, are they going to compete with Breece Hall? Is Breece Hall still the main guy? Are you going to compete approach it out to sort of thing? Because Breece Hall last season ran close to 1,000 yards of rushing. He had 994, so he was 6 yards short. He had over 1,500 yards total from scrimmage, and he had 9 total touchdowns. I mean, these are very good fantasy numbers that you want that he could duplicate, hopefully, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. Like, I mean, that's the type of numbers that he could do coming into this coming season. So just like, where does Braylon Allen fit into any of this? I really don't know at all. So the fact that he landed with the Jets, I mean, you look at a team like the Cowboys. They had a chance to take this guy.
I don't know what the hell they were doing. Clearly, you read the same article as I did, but that article what the article was for our listeners was basically like inside scoops for all 32 teams from the draft. And the Colts one was so lame, by the way. It was like, hey, they got a lot too.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, yeah, thanks. But the Cowboys one was hilarious because they kept on being like, we're going to get this guy. Oh, shit, he's gone.
Yeah.
We're going to get shit, he's gone. It's just like, what the hell are you doing? But anyway, that's Cowboys issue. But yeah, no. Sorry, were you done with your analysis or can I jump in?
Pretty much. Like I said, because like I said, the redraft value is not great with him, but then also the dynasty value with him, I don't like it at all either. Because like I said, he's landing in a situation with a very young running back. Like, I can understand a situation like maybe the Ravens, where it's like you got Derrick Henry like on his last legs. You know, he's probably got 1 or 2 more good seasons. Then you add a rookie running back. It's like dynasty value through the charts. As soon as he takes up for Derrick Henry, that's your main running back. But here, Breece Hall's still young. This guy is young. I question everything, and I just hate his fantasy value, both in redraft as well as dynasty
leagues. Jets fans, as a sports fan, you have my deepest condolences. Why can they not get anything right ever?
I don't know.
It's just like, it's truly insane. Like, I think Robert Saleh is the next Josh McDaniels of like great coordinator. 100%. If he's on the open market, I'm take that man. I'm put it on my team as a coordinator. If I am in searching of a head coach, no. I know what people are saying. Well, he's the head coach. We don't know if he made that decision. He definitely had some say in those decisions. This man is just not drafted well. I didn't like who was the Florida State guy they drafted last year? The one that was in Last Chance U, the edge rusher, not Jermaine Burrs. That was the guy that went this year.
He was out of Florida State. They drafted Will McDonald out of Iowa State, right?
That was last year. Well, that was also a bad pick. But but no, Jermaine Johnson. That's who I'm thinking. Okay. I knew it was Jermaine something. But it was
you're right. He did go Florida State.
But they also just keep drafting running backs. They took Michael Carter. They took Breece Hall. They took stop drafting running backs. You're not Shanahan. Because I honestly think that's what's happening here. Is he's just like, well, Shanahan drafted a bunch of running backs. It worked out for him. It's not the running backs that made that. It was the system. And you're not running that system. And running game was not your problem last year. Your problem was Zach Wilson.
The quarterback was the issue. Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just maddening. And on top of that, like, I know you kind of talked about, I remember watching Braylon Allen's tape, and I wasn't that impressed with it. His field vision wasn't all that good. He just kept running. There was one play in particular where he ran into a tackle, and he was like, shit. He was like bouncing behind the tackle. I'm like, just pick one. I'm like, just pick a hole and go. And so it seemed like
he wasn't perfect, but like I said, he's only 20. He's still got a lot of room to improve.
Fair enough. But again, so if they just drafted him, I would think especially a dynasty draft, okay, interesting perspective add, like especially in the later round of a dynasty draft. But like, you also brought up, they drafted Zay Davis, who I think is much, much better and will be much, much better right off the bat. So this dude's, he's just going to get fucking buried on the depth chart. Maybe if he doesn't, Aaron Rodgers is going to run for VP or blow out his other ankle or, God forbid, get COVID because he's not vaxxed. And it's just Aaron Rodgers is going to do something or decide to go in another dark room for 3 months and he's going to be out for half the season. The Jets are going to be a train wreck. That's my hot take. I'm very scared for the Jets this season.
Is that really a hot take? I don't think a lot of people are expecting the Jets to do much.
No, I think if you look at how they're being covered, people are thinking the Jets are like, favorites to win that division to some people.
Well, I think
the Dolphins got worse. The Patriots are clearly rebuilding. Bills definitely got worse. So I think a lot of people are expecting the Jets to kind of like start, be on the up and up.
Could be, but I think a lot of it is just that carryover optimism from last season. But just that big thing is.
I agree. It's misplaced optimism. It's 100% misplaced optimism.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how it plays out because it all hinges on Aaron Rodgers once again because that was the reason they had their downfall last season. If that sort of corrects itself this year, then I could possibly see that happening. But just still worries me a lot. So
he's gonna take some bad shrooms, isn't he?
We're talking about veterans here, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, some of those guys. So let's talk about the fantasy implications for some of these veterans, Tad. So who actually their stock increased because, their teams decided to not address, they didn't pull a Jets and they didn't draft, 40 running backs to add that room, sort of situation here. So it's like, what's a good situation here that a veteran has now that increased their fantasy stock value now?
This is a weird case where usually when someone gets or when a rookie gets drafted into your position group, your value tends to dip, right?
True.
I actually think that this is in fact, maybe the first case I've ever seen where I saw this guy get taken and I go, oh, I like this veteran a lot more. Keenan Allen with Chicago Bears is infinitely more valuable in my eyes now is because, look, yes, is he going to see less targets on a consistent basis? Yes, 100%. With Rome Odunze there, DJ Moore there. Obviously Cole Kmet's going to steal some targets away as well. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Because what's been Keenan Allen's biggest, I guess, black mark on his career? Injuries. So, yes, is he going to have the big game for the first 4 or 5 weeks like you're used to? No. But here's the nice thing. He's going to have big games after the first 4 or 5 weeks because he's still going to be playing.
That's true.
Which is a separate thing because I think it's kind of what I call the Saquon Barkley syndrome, right? Jason Davis, I almost kept him anonymous for some reason. Jason Davis has asked me
about earlier
during his draft. He's like, "Oh, what do you think of Will Shipley?" I'm like, "Don't take him." He's like, "Why not?" And I was like, "Because Saquon's there and Kenneth Gainwell's still there." He's like, "But Saquon gets hurt a lot." I'm like, "But Saquon's not going to be running it 30 times a game in Philadelphia." That's the difference. That's why Saquon got hurt so much is because they just overused him. Same deal with Keenan Allen. They overused him in I almost said San Diego. Still makes me sad. But they overused him with the Chargers. And I think with spreading out the responsibility.
In all fairness, he was with San Diego for a bit.
That's true. But I think spreading the responsibility will kind of prevent Keenan Allen from suffering those big time injuries. Because they were big time injuries in terms of I know some of them were, but in terms of torn ACL, or it wasn't like he was just getting unlucky. It was you're just using him too much.
Yeah.
And so I think spreading that responsibility around, yes, he is downgraded from a wide receiver too, but I think he's the perfect flex option. Like we were talking about earlier with McConkey, ironically, that he's now going to rack up consistent receptions. So, he will finish in the 8 to 10 point range on a pretty consistent basis for the entire season, but then he'll have those couple games that really blows up where he catches a touchdown, gets you those 15, 16 points that puts you over the top. And you're like, I told you starting Keenan Allen was smart. So I think is he still a consistent wide receiver too? Probably not. But is he an even better flex option? 100%. He is one of my favorite flex options going into this season. So yeah, it's weird saying, but I think the rival Romo Dunze is actually going to increase Keenan Allen's stock in terms of safety of the pick, in my opinion.
I can see that. I still think that they value his veteran presence, so they're probably going to use him a lot.
Why consistent receptions. That's why I brought the consistent receptions, because I think they're still going to target him plenty.
As they sort of groom Rome Odunze along and sort of bring him along sort of slowly sort of thing, I think that's a good situation for Odunze as well. That's like he doesn't have to come in and be that impact player that he is. He could sort of take a little bit of time and really adjust and really learn. Which is why I noticed how he did.
He wasn't either one of our picks for immediate impact, but if I'm in a dynasty league and I'm in round 2,
for sure,
some miracle Odunze is still there, taking him immediately.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I feel like Keenan Allen to sort of hold that wide receiver 2 sort of, rank there for sure. And yeah, if you have him as your flex option, that's fantastic for value for sure. But yeah, I think just that wide receiver 1 maybe is not there. Really just depends on how good Caleb Williams is in his rookie year and fitting in that situation and adjusting to the NFL. Because then, yeah, maybe we could see borderline wide receiver 1 numbers for all the reasons that you laid out, where it's like he's not being overburdened. He could sort of, use the season to his advantage, where it's like instead of being out a couple games and being overused in the rest of the games, he's sort of spreading it out over the course of the entire season. So we'll see. But yeah, I very much like that reasoning for sure. So I'm going to go to a former Colts running back here, Tad.
This was shocking. When I saw this pick, I was like, damn it, that's good.
Yeah, I really didn't think about this, but then the more that I did research on this, I was like, this is actually a very good situation. And this is, like I said, former Colts running back, former Bills running back as well, but Zach Moss running back has landed with the Cincinnati Bengals. And so obviously with the trade of Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans, this leaves a hole at the running back position for the Bengals. They ended up signing Moss in free agency, and you think, Tad, with that they'd add to the running back.
They were my pick to get Jonathan Brooks.
They're a good
that pick. Was my ideal fit.
We're talking about potentially like, Marshawn Lloyd being a Joe Mixon clone. Like he would have been a good fit there. I mean, just like you name any of the running backs, they would have been a good landing spot for the Cincy Bengals. But spoiler alert, they didn't do that. They didn't draft a single running back. They got a few undrafted guys.
Shocking.
But I was really surprised. I was just like, okay, clearly they are going with Zach Moss. Because you look at the rest of their running back room, there are some guys that I like, but nobody that's going to be a lead back the same way that I can sort of envision Zach Moss being. So they got Chase Brown, the guy from Illinois. I was a huge fan of his from last year. Travion Williams, I think, chipped in every so often. They got Chris Evans, but just overall, none of those guys strike me as like, oh, they could take the lead role from Zach Moss. I think this is clearly Zach Moss's backfield. The rest of the guys are going to be complementary pieces. Now, Ted, if I were to ask you, where did Zach Moss rank as far as running back position through the first 8 games of the season? What do you think you'd say?
45.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite. He was RB4.
Whoa!
PPR leagues through the first 8 games of the season.
Does that have a start?
He was that good. You also have to remember, obviously, Jonathan Taylor was injured, so they relied on this guy. And yeah, he totally delivered.
No. Well, he was injured, but wasn't his whole shows how good my memory is. But wasn't his holdout this season, or was that last season?
That was part of the holdout this season too.
Yeah. So he held out for the first like 3 or 4 games. Then he got hurt like his first game back.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the Colts were like, fine, you're sitting out for the first half of the season.
Exactly. But yeah, through the first 8 weeks of the season, Moss averaged 16.7 points per game in that span. And I mean, just this is a guy that you could depend on as your RB1. He was putting up those types of numbers. And so then you look at what happened after that. Because like you said, then they brought back Jonathan Taylor. He was finally healthy. From week 9 onwards, he averaged only 5.6 fantasy points per game. So clearly he got relegated to the bench.
See, that part I do remember. Hence why the running back 45.
Exactly. So it's like you're close probably on the second half. I don't have that number for you. But yeah, through the first 8 weeks of the season, this was the guy that a lot of people were either clamoring to get off of the waiver wire, or if you had him, you're like, this was a steal of the fantasy leagues. Clearly you didn't know what was going to happen the second half of the season, but just so good So it's like you look at what he's doing now coming into Cincinnati, where he's probably not going to have a lot of challenges, like I mentioned, with all the running backs in that room right now, not drafting a rookie running back. Maybe they'll sign another veteran. I really doubt it, though, because they have a lot of running backs in that room now. So just looking at the production that he had last year, I think that will carry over into Cincinnati this year. So this is a very good sleeper option when you're looking at your redraft leagues. Zach Moss in Cincinnati, note it down now.
I thought it was a given that since he was going to draft a running back,
I really thought so.
Later rounds, I'm utterly shocked they didn't. But yeah, so for better or for worse, Caesar, man, I got no notes. No notes. I mean, it's a risky ad. I will add that though, is because we're assuming he can repeat that first 8 weeks performance.
That's fair. That's fair.
So it is risky, especially because that Bengals offensive line is getting old. They got Orlando Brown and Trent Brown on both sides of the tackle. Both guys are over 30. So it is a risky ad. I don't think it's a given that he's going to be good, but like a mid-round sleeper, I mean, it's hard to find.
100%. I'm not saying you're going to start this guy as your RB1 or RB2, but yeah, if you get this guy on your bench or maybe in a flex option, like that is excellent value.
I'm just saying,
he's got that potential to go higher than that.
If he's your break glass in case of emergency guy, you're going with a pretty high risk there, but as Amir pointed out, like if he does pan out, this dude has the potential to pan out big because let's not forget, it's not like Joe Mixon was really killing it with the Bengals last season either. So maybe this is kind of revitalization they needed. And we'll see. Zach Taylor is my absolute trust. That dude who was it? Jake Browning? Was that who replaced Joe
Browning? Yep,
oh my God. Browning. He made him look like a freaking like Messiah. I was like, okay, this dude's good. So in terms of Zach Taylor and hell, maybe even Jake Browning. So now I'd just say, if he looks good to you, all right, I'll roll with it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Ted, so let's get to the other side here. Let's close this out with, a veteran that unfortunately, because of the situation, whatever that happened, drafting rookies, whatever it is, their fantasy stock has decreased. So who's the guy you got for me?
Oh, this was the easiest pick of the night. Courtland Sutton. Not drafting him. Not drafting. The second, not so much with the draft, actually, to be fair, I kind of cheated on this one a bit, but it was the second Jerry Jeudy got traded. I was like, yep, nope, not taking Sutton.
That's
not
fair.
taking him.
Fair.
I know what, some fantasy diehards are going to be saying is like, whoa, he actually had a good rebound season last year. He came out late in the season. No, he didn't. And I'll tell you why, is he finished with 10 touchdowns. Very impressive. Also why his points look good. But you look beyond the touchdown numbers, he finished the season with 770 yards on 59 catches based off 90 targets. There are a hell of a lot of red flags there. Yeah, so exactly. First off, 770 yards, not that great. 59 catches, not that great. So PPR value dips instantly. 10 touchdowns. Okay, interesting. You know who that reminded me of? Was Marquise Colston. And so I think that is kind of like, I mean, tell me I'm wrong, right? Like high touchdown numbers, but low yardage numbers, not quite the reception numbers you're expecting. So I think that's kind of Peyton's role he's envisioning for Courtland Sutton is like, you're my Marquise Colston. Well, you know what else Marquise Colston had? Other receivers.
Hey, Tad, fun fact. How many 90 or more receiving yard games did Courtland Sutton have last season?
Receiving yards?
90 or more, yeah.
1.
That is exactly right. He had 90 or more receiving yards game. Yeah. Like that's exactly what it's telling you then too. Where it's just like, he's not getting a lot of receptions.
It's opportunistic. It's opportunistic.
So yeah. So yeah, that worries me a lot, especially now with the incoming rookie of Bo Nix.
Well, so that's another thing is like if they got, maybe JG McCarthy where it's more like, okay, throw short. Like kind of like dump it off to this receiver. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, maybe Courtland Sutton's interesting. Bo Nix's whole thing is I like to air it out deep. And I think that's why Sean Payton likes him because that's the whole like concept around this offense. But going back to what I was saying before of like, okay, fine. Courtland Sutton's your, Marquise Colston. The whole reason Marquise Colston was open in the middle is because they had to push the defense to the outside to defend these stretch the field guys like Lance Moore and Traquan Smith and all these other guys. I'm not saying Marvin Mims is bad. But I'm just not saying like I'm seeing that promise quite yet. Lil Jordan Humphrey, if he's still there, he had some good showings last year.
All right. Yeah.
But that's my whole point. That kind of feels in the whole Broncos offense. Like, okay, yeah. All right, it's not terrible. It's not great.
Tim Patrick coming off his third straight serious injury.
So
it's like, I don't know what we're going to get from him.
Legally speaking, I'm sorry, Tim Patrick, you are getting the brunt of this joke here, but legally speaking, does that man have a knee anymore?
I really don't know. Yeah, it's so unfortunate.
It's like that scene in The Dark Knight Rises when the doctor's like, yeah, so usually we see some, damaged cartilage here and there's nothing. And, Bruce Wayne's like, oh, that's good. He's like, no, that's not good. That means all your cartilage is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, I don't know. And nothing against Bo Nix. Actually, Bo Nix is one of the rookie quarterbacks I think may perform better than most people expect.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be a pretty long year for Denver. And so Courtland Sutton, I'm not touching that, man. Big name. I think will get overdrafted, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's undraftable because I do think he's going to get a lot of volume. I'm just not so sure he's going to be able to turn that volume into a whole lot of production. Because again, 90 targets last year. Usually when a receiver has 90 targets, I'm pretty high on him. I'm a big targets guy. But 59 catches on 90 targets, that's over targeting. That's what I was talking about earlier with Keon Coleman, where everybody knew they were going for Sutton. And so they just defended the shit out of him, and he couldn't turn it into production. I have my same doubts this year.
That's fair. I think it's just a situation where it's just like you don't know how that adjustment going from, Russell Wilson and that whole thing to now Bo Nix, and you're training up a rookie quarterback, and will he have instant chemistry with Sutton? And just like I said, you already saw that sort of disparity between targets and receptions. Now, will it either increase or stay the same? I doubt it will increase. That's the thing that worries me a lot, especially with the playing style that Courtland Sutton has. That's the thing that sort of worries me too. So that's fair. That's fair. So I know you said you sort of had instant sort of like, this guy's stock sort of plummeted as soon as the draft pick announced of Bo Nix at number 12 to the Denver Broncos. I have another one here that as soon as this pick happened, I was just like, oh, this veteran is absolutely, his fantasy stock has plummeted so severely. And that is Michael Mayer tied up with the Las Vegas.
Oh, come on. He's barely a veteran.
But that's the crazy thing.
First tour.
But that's the crazy thing, because it's like you drafted this guy last year. I remember I was looking at both of our rankings graphics tab. We both had Michael Mayer as the number 1 tight end at the position group from last year.
That wasn't even close.
It was just like he had all the skills that you wanted as a receiving threat as well as a blocking threat. He was that all-around tight end that you wanted. Where is that now? Because clearly now you're drafting Brock Bowers to sort of relegate Michael Mayer to being...
The poor bastard just shipped out.
I know, exactly. So it's just like, is this guy just going to block now? Is this guy going to run a lot, run a lot of that 12 personnel? Is he going to run a receiving routes? But whatever it is, it's like you don't draft Brock Bowers to block for you. This guy is purely a receiving threat. So, I mean, just like, it's very interesting to see. I really thought that they give Michael Mayer a little bit more because, I mean, I've brought this up so many times on the podcast before, Tab, but rookie tight ends have a hard time adjusting to the NFL. Before you come at me, Sam Laporta is the exception to the rule, people.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is sort of the one sort of exception where he's just sort of had a breakout season. Fantastic for the Lions. He's ahead of the curve. Everybody else sort of struggles a little bit. So, I mean, this is the same thing where I saw with Mayer, where it's just like, they started to involve him later in the season. He looked a little bit better. They ran about a few routes. I think he had a 2-touchdown game, if I remember correctly, towards the end of the season. So, it's like, I saw the potential there. I was like, okay, give this guy another offseason. Getting used to the quarterback as well. Like, I think this guy could really break out in year 2 or possibly at the latest year 3. But now you add Brock Bowers to this mix, and just like it totally kills everything as far as just like, what is going to happen with this offense in regards to Michael Mayer. So very similar to what I was talking about with Braylon Allen and his dynasty value as well as his redraft value. Michael Mayer has 0 for both now, because it's like, what value does Michael Mayer have unless he gets traded now? Like, that is the only sort of semblance of a opportunity that he has as far as dynasty rankings are concerned. That's like, if you have shares of Michael Mayer, it's like, if he gets traded, that's where that value sort of increases. But as of right now, that is absolutely at 0. There's nothing that I want with this guy when it comes to redraft, and definitely when it comes to dynasty, because you also look at that offense stat, it's like it's clearly led by Devontae Adams, but outside of that, Jacoby Myers also got a lot of the targets in that offense. So now you add Brock Bowers to that mix. It's going to be a three-headed monster when it comes to the passing game. Michael Mayer is just going to be the guy that's just left out in the cold. And so just like, because of that, as soon as the Brock Bowers pick happened, I was just like, whatever shares that you had of Michael Mayer, if you couldn't trade him way before, you're not going to be able to trade him now. But yeah, hate the fantasy stock for Michael Mayer, both redraft as well as dynasty.
That'll do, Pig. That'll do. It sucks, man. Like, because Michael Mayer, like really you said, like he really came on late. The entire first half of that season, I'm like, fuck, how did I miss so bad Michael Mayer? And shocker, Josh McDaniels doesn't know how to use him.
Nope.
Big time. That man is a moron. But anyway, it seemed like he was really like kind of primed for a good season this year. I'm not writing him off yet.
Okay, interesting.
I'm not drafting him, but I'm keeping my eye on him. Because here's a one saving grace he may have, but even then, I think his ceiling is severely limited. Where they keep Michael Mayer in the traditional tight end role, and they play, and I said this during both of our live streams during the draft, is I think that the key factor here is if they play Brock Bowers more as a slot receiver or like a Kincaid type,
right.
I think there's still enough touchdown potential there for Michael Mayer. But at the same time, it is risky. Exactly. So I'm not totally writing him off as like undraftable or a bust yet. But man, I will tell you what, the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm going to be watching their preseason very carefully because there are a lot of names on that offense. I'm like, maybe. And it's just, but like, that's the whole thing. It's just like, maybe.
Yeah, it's so tough because, like I said, I saw a lot of potential with him, but I don't see it. Like you said, even in your situation where it's like, even if they keep him as a traditional tight end and they split Brock Bowers, or like I said, they use 12 personnel, use both tight ends, and then they run Bowers on a route and they keep Mayer in to block. It's just still, even at that touchdown only potential is still very risky. So for me, it's like, it's a very high risk, low reward situation with Michael Mayer. It's just like, I don't see a high enough reward for me to draft him even later or even pick him off waiver wire. So that's just my opinion. We'll see exactly what happens. I think obviously if there's an injury to Brock Bowers during the season, then you see some value with Michael Mayer. But outside of that, it's tough. It's tough. When you see the receiving threat that Brock Bowers is landing with the Raiders, it's just like, Michael Mayer is just unfortunately just the, lone man out, unfortunately. Odd man out. That's the saying I was looking for there. So it's tough. It's tough for sure. All right, Tad. So that's sort of closing out, sort of our episode here, doing that transition from the NFL draft to fantasy football. This is only like, the tip of the iceberg. There's still so much fantasy content that we're going to get into during the off season. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into our position rankings down the road. We're going to be doing our new head coaching deep dive. We do that every year. So we get diving in, talk about Dave Canales. We'll do a deep dive on Dave Canales and what can we expect from that Panthers offense when it comes to fantasy football. So, I mean, we'll be doing that. I mean, guys, we got a lot of great content coming your way, and we're sort of making that transition point from the NFL draft to fantasy content. So make sure you're sticking to us. Follow us on our social media handles. You see the ticker coming right down below. You got me at UrbanSide23. You got Tad 994. Got the show handle at These Side Guys. And, of course, on Instagram at These Side Guys as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And guys, please support our parent network at LAFB Network because they're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the professional level and the Bruins and the Trojans when it comes to the college level. Lots of great content coming from them. We had a lot of them come on our live stream to give their analysis. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate all of them there. And guys, I mean, just giving you a lot of great content when it comes to LA sports football for sure. And guys, to everybody who's already listening to our podcast, watching the YouTube videos, interacting with us on social media, I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we really can't thank you enough.
And look, we have some more exciting episodes coming down the pipeline, but at the same time, we're not really starting that coaching deep dive until a couple of weeks. So we have some time to fill.
Still
some time. So if you have some ideas of what you want us to do within reason, because I know some of the people are going to be suggesting things, hit us up on the social media right below. You see it right there on the ticker. And, we'll do our best. If we get enough online questions, we'll do a fan Q&A kind of episode. We've done that in the past. It was a good time. We'll do another quick hits. If we get enough suggestions and we're just like, let's hit all of them, we'll do another quick hits. Always love to do that. So look, we're here for you. This is the off season. Draft time is over. We're kind of finally going to go back on our 2 episode a week schedule. So it's we're back in full swing. So whatever content you guys want, we have about a month or 2 where we can provide it. So let us know. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. And please stay safe, everyone.